Let's take a closer look at what's going on in John Milton's Paradise Lost and how Milton is approaching the problem of evil. I'm not sure if you can hear the sound of the water in the background. I hope it doesn't distract you from following closely to this lecture. You should have your class notes with you, and you should be taking notes on them from this presentation. But that sound is the sound of water. And I think as we proceed, I think for various reasons, it's very appropriate as a background to our discussion of Milton and Paradise Life. Water we associate with life. Jesus associated water with life, particularly the water that he has to give us. Anyway, the fall of man is central to the Christian worldview understanding of the universe. And it's been told many times, and it focuses on the first 3 chapters of Genesis, on the earth, and on events that happened in the earth. And the earth is the center of this fall. So Adam and Eve's fall, humankind and the earth become the center of any discussion of the problem of evil in Milton's time and today. But Milton doesn't really see it as such. Genesis, all of these things occur within the context of the universe, the material universe. And on the planet Earth, then, X marks the spot where the fall of man happened. So Milton, however, in justifying the ways of God to man, he understands this, the fall of man, occurring in a much bigger framework. So here's the universe, here's the earth, and that's of secondary importance. That is actually a secondary setting in Paradise Lost. What's really important to Milton is the setting of the eternal, and that there is this God. Our God is a consuming fire, and our God is at the center of eternity, not just creation. And remember, the universe is created matter and time. How many of you, if I ask you to define infinity or define eternity, you would define it in terms of endless time? But we know from physics that time is a property of matter, the created universe. It doesn't exist outside of God's creation. In other words, here where Milton places his story in eternity, eternity is the context of the problem of evil. Its scope is much larger than the planet Earth, than Adam and Eve's fall. Even then, as huge as our universe is, the problem is bigger than our universe. It's something that happened outside of time. It's something that began in eternity, and there was a much greater fall. And this is the context of Paradise Lost. And that is of an angel, a powerful angel, serving at the Lord's throne in eternity, outside of created time, outside of created matter, out of the earth, the universe. And that angel rebels against God and leads other angels into a fall. And in this we have the emergence of Satan. And Milton, uniquely in Paradise Lost, places the problem of evil, sets it in the larger framework. We are so focused, if you will, on ourselves and on this little planet called Earth and on the fall of these little beings called Adam and Eve. When their fall, I'd like to challenge you to think about this. The fall of Adam and Eve is a small thing compared to the fall of an archangel. And Milton sets his story, sets Genesis in the context of eternity and these eternally existing beings. The angels are created by God, but they are not like us. They are immortal, and they have the properties, if you will, of living in the Lord's actual presence in eternity, as well as being able to enter our world of time and space. So in that context, and this is why the first book begins with Satan's fall. And that first excerpt we find Satan in hell, newly thrown out of heaven, and he's kind of getting himself together. He finds himself in this lake of fire. His body is huge. When at the end of the excerpt you read, you should look at that, where he drags himself out of the lake of fire, leaves this huge gap in it. So this picture of hell is there's fire and there's land as well, but it's all burnt and destroyed. So it begins with Satan. And so the setting, if you will, the location of Paradise Lost is eternity. And within eternity, we move to hell. And then we won't do this in any of the excerpts we read, but we move to heaven. And we also find ourselves on earth with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So incredible context. I mean, setting his story within eternity's boundaries, eternity's context. So in this context, then, we have the earth. And if here we are on the earth, right here we are on the earth, inscribed by this little sphere. And what we know then, by default, can only be within the context of these limitations. I mean, we can, and we have, as human beings, sent out explorations into the cosmos here. We've landed on the moon to take readings of what else might be out there. But all of the movement, notice, has to go from inside the circle to the outside. And as far as these greater things, the existence of Satan, the existence of hell, the existence of heaven, and our triune God at the center of that heaven, how can we send anything out beyond the sphere of the created universe to know these things? It isn't possible. So for knowledge to come, there has to be someone from within, for knowledge of Satan, for knowledge of hell, for knowledge of earth. There has to be someone from this sphere out here who comes into our sphere and brings this knowledge to us. And this whole idea of knowledge is very, very important, Milton. And remember, his theme, his purpose is to justify the ways of God to man. And we have the tree of life opposed to a tree of knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So knowledge and the nature of knowledge must be very important to Milton's understanding of evil and how he is going to develop both the origins of the problem of evil and its fruit, or its ramifications, and perhaps even its solution. Important context of knowledge for John Milton. He's going to differentiate between two kinds of knowledge, and those two kinds of knowledge are going to be connected to the two trees in the garden. So there is the tree of life, and there's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the way he represents these kind of knowledge, so there's the kind of knowledge that comes from human experience. It's embodied knowledge. It's knowledge that comes from what we feel, what we can see and hear, what is real to us, what is present to us. And notice how that forms the shape of a heart. We can call this heart knowledge. So our heart knowledge is the knowledge of what is real, and it comes to us through the experience of our bodies. We pick it up through the sensory data that our bodies provides us. And then there's this other kind of knowledge, and this knowledge is head knowledge, and it's just in terms of thoughts that come into our mind, of information somebody might tell us, like in a long, boring intro to lit PowerPoint. And the nature of head knowledge is that it's unreal. It's not real to us. It's not something that is a part of the experiential world we live in. It just lives inside our heads, and that's the only life it has. And Milton is going to relate the tree of life, the before, to experiential knowledge. So before the fall, Adam and Eve, what was real to them, what they experienced, was oneness with each other. It was their God's presence. It was the voices of angels. Notice in book 4 how Adam talks to Eve. They're at the end of the day. They're getting ready to go back to their home in the Garden of Eden, this wonderful natural paradise, a shelter that God himself had made for them. And Adam says, we're not alone. Listen, you can hear the voices of the angels singing. So this is something they really hear. These are things they really see. Adam talks with the angels in an excerpt between book 1 and book 4, between book 4 and book 9. Adam talks with the angels. He talks with the angel Raphael that comes to give him knowledge of Satan. And so these angels are real, and God is real, and their love for each other is real, and their oneness is real. Because it's what they experience, it's what they see and hear and feel and touch. But afterwards, before the fall, then, let me go ahead and say, before the fall, what was unreal? What was just head knowledge for Adam and Eve before the fall? Well, for Milton, this is really important, because Adam and Eve weren't caught by surprise by Satan. In Paradise Lost, when Satan leaves hell and heads for earth with the intent of destroying God's beautiful new creation, God sends the angel Raphael to warn Adam and Eve. And the angel tells Adam, before the excerpt we read in book 4, he tells Adam the whole story. He tells him about the war and the rebellion in heaven, the fall of angels. He tells him about everything that we saw happened outside of our ability to perceive and to know, because our ability to know things, to perceive and understand, is limited, is bounded by earth and bounded by the material universe, things that we can touch, that are immediately perceptible to our bodies. And so the angel, Raphael, he tells Adam, he tells him about Satan, he tells him about the rebellion in heaven, and Adam shares that knowledge with Eve. And so so before the fall, in Milton, Adam and Eve know about evil. They know about evil. They know, they've been warned, they know about Satan. But what is the nature of this knowledge? They've never experienced evil. They've never met Satan. It's all head knowledge. So notice, in Paradise Lost, the experiential knowledge before the fall is of a life, a world, and existent relationships between a man and a woman that are totally free of evil or of Satan's presence. And the knowledge of evil and Satan's presence is only here in the head. And yes, I know this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But what Milton is saying is that it's not like Adam and Eve didn't have knowledge before they ate of that fruit. In fact, what happens during the fall, and this is, if you will, Milton's unique contribution. What happens before the fall is the switching of these places between real knowledge and unreal knowledge. So what happened after the fall? Well, after the fall, all of this, all that they had known before the fall, becomes head knowledge. It's no longer, they no longer live in a world where Satan is not present, where they have not separated themselves from God. And now they've separated, they can't perceive him, they can't perceive the angels. Their eyes have been closed, their ears have been closed by the fall. So now the only source of heart knowledge is this experience of a fallen world, of a world where Satan is a very real presence. And that knowledge of what a world without Satan becomes head knowledge. That means it's unreal. And how many Intro to Lit students I've had that when I've asked them questions before we start reading Paradise Lost, or when they read these excerpts, they say, it's like a make-believe world. It's like a fantasy world. And heaven isn't real to us. It can't be real to us. It's not part of our experience. It's just the knowledge of it is just in our heads. Think about what has happened with the fall. The experiential knowledge of God has been replaced with the experiential knowledge of the devil, of Satan, which means that what is real to us in terms of what is present and perceivable to us is now Satan, and what is not present and perceivable is God without Satan. So life is real knowledge. Good and evil, no, is head knowledge. Before the fall. After the fall, not so. After the fall, life is just head knowledge, immortality, living one with God. And to be connected and one with God is to be living in immortality, in eternity. It's just head knowledge now. What's real knowledge is the knowledge of living in a temporary world, a world that is limited and can only be known now through our senses, our perceptions of taste, touch, sight, sound, feeling. So let's take a closer look, thinking about your Journal 7 and your answers to Journal 7. So before, what was real? Well, for Adam and Eve, this is what was real. Their relationship was one. They had unity with nature. They had unity with angels. They had unity with God. They had unity with each other. They had unity with themselves. In other words, this is a picture of wholeness, of completeness, not of separateness. It's a picture of peace, and it's a picture of oneness. And we see this so beautifully illustrated. I love this. When we see Adam and Eve, and they're going back to their shelter for the night, and they worship God. They just move together in perfect oneness. Adam doesn't have to say, okay, Eve, bow your head, it's time for prayer. No, they just move together. Their oneness with each other and their oneness with God is so complete. It's like this picture of, of birds taking off a flock of birds flying, and not a single bird runs into another bird. They're in such complete unity. They're in such complete oneness with each other. And this is the picture we have of Adam and Eve before the fall. In book 4 and in book 9, they worship. They just step into prayer simultaneously, spontaneously together. They raise their arms up with all creation. So the stars are singing. I mean, there's this incredible oneness, and they make love. And Milton's really clear here. There was sex before the fall, but it wasn't sex. It wasn't one person using another for the gratification of their own personal pleasure. This was oneness. They moved into it was just another manifestation of the total oneness of Adam and Eve together, of being. So that there wasn't an asking, there wasn't a need to ask. They moved together simultaneously. There wasn't this, oh no, I have a headache tonight, or no, I'm too tired, or whatever. There was just together, simultaneously, spontaneous, moving in and out of physical oneness, moving in and out of emotional oneness, moving in and out of oneness with worship. So how was this expressed? We've already talked about that. Well, you know what? In Milton, you see Adam and Eve working before the fall. Work is not a curse. It's not a result of the fall. They were given stewardship of the garden, and that meant tending the garden. So I want you guys to think about this. I don't know what kind of pictures come into your mind, head knowledge. And remember, it's head knowledge. It's not actual knowledge, experiential knowledge, real knowledge in that sense. It's just head knowledge. You've just got ideas, and ideas come from words and sentences, propositions. But I mean, when you picture heaven, do you just see a garden? When somebody says the Garden of Eden, do you just picture perfectly trimmed hedges and rolling lawns of green grass and fruit just hanging from the trees, and nobody has to do anything? They can just pick the fruit. Well, remember, this garden is represented, symbolized by the tree of life. And I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but when something is alive, a tree or grass, hedges, they grow. That's the nature of life. It multiplies, it gets bigger, it fills the space around it. To be truly alive. That's what life is like. It's an expanding, and it's a constant expanding and strengthening. If you see a sapling, a young tree growing, you see that trunk, it fills out. It doesn't matter how hard the top may be pruned. The trunk still gets thicker and stronger and wider, greater girth around it as it grows because of the life that's in it. And so this is Milton. He's saying, gee, guys, have you never thought about this? Adam and Eve had to work. They had to trim, they had to cut, they had to deal with the growth, with this incredible outpouring of life all around them. So they trimmed rose bushes, and they pruned trees, they pruned fruit to get the most fruit from the branches, expose the branches to the sun so they can get they're involved in work before the fall. So but they work together. I mean, up until Satan plants this idea in Eve's mind in her dreams, that maybe they should separate and work separately, they're always together. And working together, right? When you have it's not like, oh, I'm doing most of the work. Oh, he never does. He never carries his fair share. There's nothing of that, because they're both on the same wavelength, so totally one with one another. So joy is expressed in work. Love, unity, oneness is expressed in their work. In addition, prayer. I mean, I love this picture Milton portrays. Well, they just stand together simultaneously, morning and evening. When they first wake up, when they're the last thing before they go to bed, this spontaneous outpouring of praise and thanksgiving, joining in with the voices that they're hearing around them of angels, of nature itself. I mean, we have this picture, the Bible says, and although I'm a lit person, I don't think the Bible is a work of literature in the sense that Paradise Lost is a work of literature. So that I think when the Bible says that day after day the heavens pour forth speech, night after night they declare your glory, I tend to take those things literally, because my hearing range is limited. I can't even hear, I don't have the same hearing range as a dog. It doesn't mean that those sounds, that the whole universe isn't filled with sounds that are beyond our human limitations to hear. So notice how Milton is just presenting this, presenting our limitations, the sphere of our limitations, but what exceeds our limitations, what makes it possible for us to hear what is coming from beyond the material created universe is our oneness with God. So before the fall, it's this perfect unity. Adam and Eve created, inhabiting the earth, which is created and which exists within the universe, the cosmos, which is created, exists within eternity, and there's no fraction or breaking of this. So there's perfect oneness in prayer, there's perfect oneness in worship, there's perfect oneness in physical intimacy. So before the fall then, now this is another very important thing Milton is doing. Did you pick up on this as you were reading? There's a very clear distinction between animal life and human life. The animals don't talk, they don't think before the fall, they don't work. They just wander around and they live for food and sex. And Milton's very clear about this when he describes Adam and Eve going to bed with each other. He describes this in terms of free sex is only okay for animals, never for human beings, because for human beings, this action is always intended to be within the context of this perfect oneness of relationship. It's always to be in the context of unity with another being, and a unity that transcends time, a momentary attraction, a momentary physical interaction. And so it's meant to create other human beings and to multiply this wonderful unity, this wonderful experience of life and growth in all of its fullness. And yes, Milton is equating life with oneness. So the human beings worked. Unlike animals, they thought. We hear them discussing and reasoning. Adam and Eve are, when they're not sure, they're having this disagreement because Satan planted this idea. He whispered this idea into Eve's dreams. He took the shape of a frog and was whispering before the good angels caught him in the garden and took him away. And please note at that moment, they don't know Satan. Satan doesn't realize how altered his exterior, his appearance has become. But the angels, it takes the angels a while to recognize him as Satan because he's so changed after his fall. And Adam and Eve, then we see them thinking and talking. Eve wants to go work on her own. She thinks they can cover more ground, get more done if they each go take a section, their own section. And Adam's saying, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And you'll see back and forth. You see them thinking and reasoning. And this is not anywhere a part of the animal kingdom. And then, of course, they're communicating and talking with each other. And perhaps most of all, They love each other, and love is in terms of these actions that emerge out of their relationship in perfect unity, perfect oneness, simultaneously and spontaneously. But afterward, what happens? Well, after the fall, the animals still don't talk or think. Nothing's changed for them. They still don't work. They just roam around. Their time is their own. And they still live for food and sex. Nothing's changed. The animals are animals. That's inherent in their animal nature. But human beings have changed. Adam and Eve have changed. They've stopped communicating. They're not even listening to each other. They have their separate agendas. And I want to emphasize that word separate. They're separate agendas now. And they start blaming each other. Well, if you had just done this, then da-da-da-da. And it's, no, well, you're the one that offered me the apple. Okay. So they stop communicating. They stop thinking. They're not reasoning here. They're rationalizing. They're not reasoning. They're trying to exert power over one another. And they don't want to work anymore. Work becomes laborious. There's no longer the joy of being one, being a team in their endeavors. And they live for food and sex. All you have to do, peeps, scroll down your Facebook news feed. You tell me if we aren't living for food and sex. What's pictured the most on Facebook? Food and things that suggest sexual activity. In other words, Milton seems to be showing here that after the fall, human beings did not become God-like at all, as the serpent promised, but became more like. They went down the evolutionary scale. They did not go up. So how did all of this happen? How did Satan work his magic in Book 9? Well, first of all, he attacks the mind. So notice how this seems to be a theme among our Christian writers over and over again, from Psychomachia to Dante to Faustus to Hamlet. Here in Paradise Lost, Satan, he whispers thoughts in Eve's mind. And that's the beginning. He times his attack at lunch. She's hungry, okay? And here's this tree with this fruit on it. But this is what's really, really important. This is what's different about John Milton. This is why it's so important to understand what he's saying about the problem of evil. At this great pivot in history, after Milton, everything's going to start changing, not because of Milton, but because of science. Because science has been birthed, and modern science is going to grow and develop, and modern science relies on empirical proof. Now look what Milton did just here in portraying the fall of man. Satan enters a serpent. I mean, Adam and Eve have this knowledge. They know there's this fallen angel in the garden and he wants to destroy them. They know all about this. Do you think if this angel appears to them and tries to convince them to eat of the fruit of the forbidden tree, that they'd fall for it? No, they wouldn't. They know. They have that head knowledge. So they know. No, they have to be deceived. And how are they deceived? Well, he gets Eve by herself. I mean, he separates them. And how are they deceived? He enters the mouth of a serpent. Eve has no idea she is talking to Satan. She has no idea she's talking to a fallen angel. He thinks she's talking to a snake. And this snake is so different from every other snake she's ever met or known, every other animal. What did we just get through noting about animals before the fall. They didn't talk. This snake talks. They didn't think. This snake thinks. He reasons. This snake is alive to beauty. He responds to Eve's beauty. Ah, he's moved to a higher nature, from an animal nature. He's no longer just interested in food and sex. Oh no, he's interested in higher things. What's the evidence? What's the real, the perceptive, the sensory evidence of Eve's eyes, her ears, her body, her presence, and her mind, her reason? All these things come together. Here's an animal. He's totally different than any other animal in the garden. Gosh, he's like me. This animal has become human-like. And how does the animal tell Eve that he became human-like? Well, he presents this empirical evidence. Here I am, and this is what happened when I ate of the fruit of this tree. It changed me. I went up a huge jump on the evolutionary scale. I mean, that's how Milton, in a nutshell, is presenting Satan's winning strategy. So Eve thinks she's talking to an animal. Is she gonna distrust the evidence of her own senses? Has Eve ever had a cause in the garden, in her life, in her experience, to distrust the evidence of her own senses? Everything has been in perfect oneness and harmony with God, with Adam, with nature, with angels. She's had no reason to distrust the evidence of her senses. And here her senses are telling her that this snake ate this fruit and became like her. And then Satan, this is his coup d'etat, the finishing stroke. He says, he suggests to Eve, if eating this fruit turned me, a mere animal, into something human-like, I wonder what it would do to a human. Gosh, it makes sense. It only seems logical. It would turn a human into something godlike. And that's the point at which Eve falls. In her mind, she suddenly imagines what she's never imagined before, what it would be like to be like God. She takes of the fruit, she eats it, and wow. What kind of thoughts enter her mind now? Well, I want to bring today's lecture to a close. What happened here is that Eve has moved from life being what is experientially real to now this knowledge. She's separate. I mean, her first thought is, I'm not going to give any of this to Adam because it's given me, knowledge is power. Now I know something he doesn't, and it's given me power over him. And the only reason she ends up offering the fruit to him is suddenly she gets worried that maybe God will make another wife for Adam. And her jealousy, it's not her love for Adam. There's no longer this oneness and unity, perfect love between them. No, she's jealous and she wants to keep him. It's all about power and authority. And so she gets Adam to eat the fruit. Why does Adam eat the fruit? He loves Eve. What a noble thing. How is it replayed in romantic movies? The man just wants to lay his life down for the woman he loves. And every woman, that's what she wants, isn't it? Just for a man to love her so much, he'd lay down her life for her. No one says, oh, I just want a man who will lay down his life for Jesus. No matter, not for me, but he's ready to lay down his his life for Jesus because Jesus is the one he loves most. No, no. And that's evidence of our fallenness. Peeps, did we think of our girlfriends or boyfriends, our husbands and our wives? Even along those lines, we see them as something separate from ourselves. And now it's the knowledge of good and evil that is exponentially real. Now, Adam and Eve are in a unique position, and I'm going to wind up here today. Adam and Eve, they have, for them, the before the fall life is exponentially real. They know what it was like to experience that oneness. They know what it was like. How much greater is the agony of their loss, knowing, having the memory of what it was like. They had experienced it, and now they experienced what it's like to be separated from God, to be separate from each other, and not to have that oneness anymore. But what happens to the children of such a couple? Remember, Milton is about justifying the ways of God to man. And I want to emphasize here right now that for Milton, the fall did not happen. The change in human nature did not happen because of something in the fruit. It wouldn't have mattered what the fruit was. The fact that it was forbidden and that they exerted their wills separately from God and then separately from each other. See what happens. They separate their wills from God. And the next step is their wills are separated from each other. There's this clash. And that's what is irreparable now, because their children, their descendants, for them, now this will always be head knowledge. It will never be real. Adam and Eve had experiential knowledge both before the fall, what it was like to live before the fall, what it was like to live after the fall were both real to them, experientially real. For their children, not possible. For their children now, the idea of living in perfect oneness and perfect love, what it was like to occupy a world like that, what a world of life, what a world would be like that, is just speculate, it's head knowledge. There's no way to experience it. For their descendants, for their children, for their children's children, for their children's children's children, for us today. Now, what is real is what we experience. And our experience is of a fractured world, is of everyone with their own will, separate wills, pursuing their own wills. Now and then coming together in unity, but never living in that space. No, that's all that can be experientially real. So the farther we go down the line, the less real heaven becomes, the more real our fallen world becomes. And we will pick this up again in Wednesday's lecture. Please, class, don't forget, you need to turn in Journal 7 today and Journal 8. Your answers to Milton's questions. How is Milton defining evil? What does he say the source of evil is? What is he saying about how people become more or less evil? And what is he saying about evil being overcome, resisted, and or overcome? So your answers to those questions, paragraph for each question, will comprise Journal 8.